Sambatskano Mongol Trudan, welcome to Talk with Me.
Jim Dwyer is co-founder and executive director of the Business Council of Mongolia.
Jim Dwyer, welcome to you, my friend. It's good to see you.
Nice to be here.
It's been a very long time since I saw you last.
Yes, Allison. What have you been doing?
Many things, but more importantly, I want to know what you've been up to.
Okay.
First, though, I'd love it if you would tell our viewers what brought you to Mongolia many years ago.
I was in Manhattan doing my investment banking, merger and acquisition stuff, which I'd done for 30 years. And I got a call from a consultant saying, would you like to go to Mongolia and sell the largest bank for the government in a privatization? And I said, sure. And but tell me if it's profitable and has good market share, then I'm really interested. And they said yes and yes. So I said, when would you like me? And they said, in 2 weeks. And then I said, fine, but where exactly is Mongolia? And they told me how to get here. And I got here. And I thought I'd be here for about a year selling a bank and back in Manhattan. And here I am.
And now looking back.
Well, first, I had no perception. I had no clue what Mongolia would be like. And so I just came, like the first time I went to Manhattan to go to business school. I had no idea what Manhattan would be like. Well, this was not quite the same, Manhattan to Mongolia. But when I got here, well, the road in from the airport really was pretty bad. In fact, it was until about 3 months ago. And I finally fixed it, and now it's great. But what other perceptions when I got here? I can remember going to Torrells, and it was my first time in the countryside, and it was, God, I saw guys with yaks, herding them through these trees, and so the nature or the countryside really struck me positively. And in the city, I learned to get around and and walk to work and stuff like that, and coped.
Yeah. Jim, tell me a bit about privatizing Trade Development Bank, Han Bank. Tell me about your role with these two big privatizations.
Well, there was a group here called Barron's that was in charge of privatization, and USAID was funding them. And they came in about 1998, and when I got my call in 2001, they hadn't closed a deal. They had all the technical work done. Right. And so I was asked to be the lead investment banker on the deal. And then they would bring in a lawyer, which they did when we were close to closing. So my role was to basically really understand the bank, to understand what it was worth, so I could negotiate with potential buyers, then to identify potential buyers, and to market it and try to get them to come and look. And we had actually just 2 finalists. And we not wined and dined, but we showed these 2 the bank and really got them comfortable with making bids, which they did. Right. And so we took the higher bid once they were evaluated by a panel of 5 top Mongolians to make sure that they were technically qualified, which they both were. And then the higher bid won. So. But the politician, once we had an agreement, then the RP was in charge, and the Democrats tried to delay the deal, which they did. And I can remember the Prime Minister then, Dwyer, kept telling the head of my client. My client was the State Property Committee. Right. I was advising Prev Dosh, their head at the time. He went on to be central bank head, and he became a good friend. But. He was telling me, Prime Minister says, if you can't sell this, the biggest bank, how can we ever sell Han Bank, which we want to have done next? And we would like you to do that. And I said, tell him we'll do it. Just politicians are delaying things.
Yes, yes. And politicians today are still delaying things.
Yeah, but we got it done. We got it done again with Han Bank too.
Do you find in Mongolia things get done eventually? Just takes a bit more time.
I think that's right. Because we're such a democracy. And at least in the political world, and that sometimes impacts business, a lot of times, there are a lot of opinions to be talked through before decisions get made. Yep. and that's not really good in terms of business.
Yeah.
So things do get delayed here.
Yeah.
And they might take longer, but hopefully everything's going to be great.
Yeah. Jim, tell me about the Business Council of Mongolia, BCM, which you co-founded. Tell me about the activities that the BCM is involved in and a little bit about the history.
Okay. Well, the history. In about 2003, a U.S. ambassador, Mark Minton, told this group that came in and did a conference once a year from Washington, North America Mongolia Business Council, that you guys come in for a week and you disappear for 51 weeks. There's a little group here that gets together monthly, sort of. Why don't you take them over? And so they did, and that became the Mongolian branch of the NAMBC in Washington. Mm-hmm. And my colleague, Pete Morrow, who was running Han Bank did for about 10 years, but at that time, mm-hmm. too, and I kind of were overseers pro bono for this. And after about 4 years, in 2007, the members said, hey, you guys should have an office and advocate for us and a staff. Mm. And we had 35 members. They were all foreign, mainly miners, BHP, mm-hmm. Rio, Ivanhoe, the Caterpillar dealer, and some others. And the fellow in Washington said, no, we're okay, we don't want to do that. So we broke off and set up BCM. And that's why we did it. But then what's happened is that, you know, we met our two goals, which were to get big mm-hmm. and to get at least half Mongolian, to represent all businesses, not just foreign businesses, but local too, because they're in the same boat, and the laws should be set appropriately. Mm-hmm. And so we've gone from 35, now we're 8 times bigger, 270, and more than half Mongolian. Our board is 29 directors, and mm-hmm. they're more than half Mongolian. And we have 250 volunteers from our members on 6 working groups, coming up with issues and recommendations, which we then advocate for with government officials. So mm-hmm. we've really levered with our small staff, and we have, you know, we've gotten very strong in terms of representing businesses with stakes here, every kind of business.
Wow. Tell me, I mean, what businesses? So it's not just mining businesses. What sort of businesses?
Everything that's here. Law firms, accounting firms. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But mining and mining supply chain is, by definition, about a third of the economy. Right. So about a third of our members are in those areas. But then it covers. There are a lot of schools joining. Schools. Education is becoming a big thing. Private schools. Yeah. In fact, we have our education working group has a program called BCM in the University Classroom. Mm-hmm. And we've had our members, officials, in front of over 2,000 students in the last year and a half. Students and teachers in about 5 or 6 schools, and it's growing.
What's the sentiment amongst the business community at the moment, given the economic downturn? What's the buzz around town? What are people saying? You know, I mean.
Yeah. Well, we've just finished about 2 very tough years economically. Yeah. It's impacted everybody, I think. You know, Narrentul is.
Did you say Narrentul?
Narrentul is not as busy.
I know, the black market.
The black market. There used to be 6 dealers in Mercury Market. Now there are 3.
Yeah, you can see it, can't you? I mean,
it's touched everybody. Yeah. You know, obviously, the new government and the new prime minister recognizes the fact that business has got to pick up, and there are some big deals that are close, but we've got to get Rio and the government together. We've got to get TT going, and a few others. In Hong Kong last week at the investment
tell me
summit.
About this, the investment summit in Hong Kong.
Well, one thing that somebody was asked, and the response from, I guess, the head of EBRD to the question, what would you like to see happen soon? Mm-hmm. He said, I think the focus should be on getting maybe a couple of the big deals that have been started finished.
Yeah, it's that simple.
Yeah, not worry about 100 potential deals, but some of the major ones, get them done.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And I think that Mr. Sakenbelig feels that way too. And I think, you know, he's already announced that he wants to see the big deals done. He wants to get investment coming back in and get things going again.
Yeah, so hopefully this will be a turning point with Seichen Billig as the new prime minister. Do you know him?
No, we've met, but personally no. But our chairman, Biamba Seichen, used to work for him when he ran the ICTA in the late 90s. And Biamba and he lift weights together and have stories to tell. And Biamba thinks he's a really good guy, and if things could work out.
I want to know about you. You're born in Erie, Pennsylvania, later went to Columbia Business School where you did your MBA. Your father was a Marine, but also a judge who advised you against a career in the law. You come from a family of lawyers. Give me a rundown on your upbringing and your university life.
Well, let me think. I came from a big Irish Catholic family that I was the oldest of 6 children, and I have my father's name. I'm James III. There's a James IV in Long Island. He's doing well in East Hampton, selling real estate. Anyway, I worked for 5 summers in my grandfather's bakery, which was a tri-state bakery. And
in Pennsylvania?
Yeah, in Erie. And the first year I was 15, so I wasn't allowed in the plant because I wasn't covered by insurance, so they had me outside cutting weeds by the railroad tracks or something. But I got elevated and I was on the cake line the next year. I went in the plant. and then during college I worked for a local accounting firm, which was good background.
Yep.
I thought I was an English major, but then I ended up with an accounting major. But back to Erie, I can remember 2 things that stuck with me. One you mentioned, which was, for some reason my father thought I should be a doctor and not a lawyer. Now, 2 of my sisters and my brother are in law, and my brother is a judge, a Brooklyn criminal judge. For 30 years he ran the appeals bureau in Manhattan, the biggest DA's office in the world. I mean, he knows the law inside and out. Anyway, my father though said, you know, you should look at the medicine. And I did try it. My freshman year, chem lab, I almost flunked, and I made a deal with the professor that if he would pass me, I would not go into pre-med. And so I switched. Anyway, the other one was when I was 12, I was shortstop on the Little League baseball team that won the city championship. Wow. And then I told my father, I mean, he was very proud of me, and I told him now I will go into the 13-year-old pony league. And he said, well, think about this. Which sport, baseball or golf, do you think you'll be able to play for a longer time in your life? And so I went on the golf team in high school. And I still love golf.
Yeah. Do you play golf in Mongolia?
No, I did, and saw the horse. We had a horse guy as our fore caddy.
Did you hit a horse with a golf ball?
No, but you hit it on the green and it would bounce because it was Velcro greens. Now they have 2 real courses with watered greens, just opened. Yeah. But I stopped playing about 6 or 7 or 8 years ago. And I played a few times back in the U.S., but I still love golf, always will. Yeah.
Jim, do you miss you've had a very exciting career in Manhattan. Do you miss that lifestyle, the New York lifestyle? I mean, what's the big difference between New York, UB? I mean, I know what you prefer because you live here, but why do you live in UB and not New York?
Well, I did New York and raised a family there and really got to the top of my profession, which in investment banking, mergers and acquisitions kind of became a specialty about when I got into it. And so I had a chance to organize a couple of departments and run them, but I liked doing deals of all kinds. And because you had to deal with people, it didn't matter how big or small the company that you were trying to buy or trying to sell was, you had to deal with the people who ran it and really get in their minds so you could negotiate on their behalf. For a higher price for them or for a lower price if you're trying to buy something, or to work out the fit. So I liked. It was, I was a CPA before going to business school, but and my MBA and all of that learning, book learning, accounted for maybe about 10% of what it took to be a good banker,
Yes.
a good merger person.
Yeah.
It was 90% people.
Right, right.
So here we are. So here, and that was a big stage. And New York was, you know, the leading financial market. Still probably is. So, you know, I had done that, and you know, for 20 years, every vacation I had might be canceled at the last minute. So
Yeah.
several, I was on vacation and I had to come back because you had to serve clients, and whenever they wanted to do something, you had to jump.
Yeah.
And my rule was I couldn't do more than 7 clients at once. And hopefully they were in different stages, otherwise you go completely crazy. So, you know, it was a service business at the highest levels.
Of course.
But it was, you know, it was a lot of fun. But here, there are a lot of similarities between the business council and knowing the government people and all the business leaders, be they, you know, local or international, and trying to keep up with the different sectors, and it's changing. It's embryonic, but it's changing quickly. And so you're kind of involved in a lot of things, and it's a small world, and UB is sort of like, you know, it's the country,
Yeah.
in effect.
Yeah.
So it's you know, I as I told you, I have a huge Rolodex, you know, because I've been here for a long time.
Yeah.
And so knowing people in the backgrounds here helps because there's cycles. And
Of course.
so Manhattan to Mongolia.
What a
They're both
change
great
in
experiences.
Gears. What a change in gears.
Well, yeah, but I'm in fourth gear a lot.
Tell me a little bit about how you met your wife.
How did I? Oh my God. Well, she's not listening because she and my son are in Virginia right now, as he's in 12th grade over there,
In
hoping
Richmond?
to in Arlington, Virginia, which
yeah.
is a suburb of Washington.
Of course.
A lot of Mongolians there. They'll be back this summer. She's run a travel company for 14 years, and Visit Mongolia it's called. But so she's not watching this. So how I met her was in River Sounds, where I used to go because I'm really into music. And as an aside, 2 of us produced 2 CDs for Mongolian divas. One was Naran and another was Hulan in English. The only 2 Americans who've ever done that, P. Morrow and I. So I was into music, and we were, also with Inkbot, the 2 of us ran the Giant Steps of Jazz for about 6 years. So I used to go to River Sounds a lot, and I knew all the musicians. And one time, these 2 women came in and sat right next to my table, and I always sit by myself with a cigar, close to the piano.
So do I.
And these 2 women came and sat there, and I didn't say anything to them. But then a 3rd woman came and joined them after about an hour, and she was sitting almost next to me. And so I started talking to her, and it turned out to be my wife.
Oh.
And it was only the 3rd time she had ever been in River Sounds. She's always working on her tourism company. And she doesn't let me go to River Sounds anymore. Anyway, that's how we met.
Oh, Jim.
That's nice. I love stories like that. I love knowing how people met. Do you still smoke cigars?
No, since they changed the rules here, I've gotten out of the habit. And it's
Yeah.
probably better off. I never smoked cigarettes, luckily.
Yeah.
But I did smoke cigars from my investment banking days. We'd have big closing celebrations.
course,
and
yeah.
Cigars would come out, and here you could smoke in restaurants and all the time. So I smoked cigars here until about 2 years ago when the rules changed.
Yeah.
And I had one. I had one about a month ago, but I mean I don't miss them.
Yeah.
Probably a good change.
Ah, gosh. Jim, tell me about your Mongolian. Have you managed to learn Mongolian? You speak Mongolian fluently?
I used to.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
but you know, my son is very fluent in English, and
Yeah.
his mother's not. She's very fluent by email, getting VIP clients to come in. But we spend more time focusing on English when we're together, and they don't try to teach me Mongolian. It's too tough. I've given up.
It is tough. I know. Sometimes I feel like giving up. I try and learn 1 word a day.
Well, that's
And
good.
keep it in there and not let it escape.
I've forgotten 1 word a day. I used to be able to count to 100. Now I think I'm down to about less than 5. But it's easier now because, you know, English is widely spoken by particularly younger people, and Facebook and all,
Yeah, of
and
course.
everybody with their cell phones. And my son's into NBA basketball, watching it
Nice.
on TV, and
Yeah.
so it's very. When I came, 54, whatever it was, 2001. We had translators for our big meetings, and now it's not. Now it's a lot easier.
Yeah. Listen, Jim, what's your advice for UB newcomers, people who come to UB, particularly in business? Well, what would you say to people arriving in UB from overseas?
Well, if they're in business,
Yeah.
I say join BCM.
Ah, yes. of
Join
course.
BCM for networking and to get plugged into the
It's
local
important, isn't it?
economy. Yes, very important. Particularly if it's a rep office trying to sell a product or a service, you obviously want to get customers. And how do you get them? We once a month we have a meeting, but then we at Blue Sky we drink wine and beer for another hour, and with 150 to 200 people, and they're in every kind of business, and the connections are being made there. So yeah, that's my advice. If it's a tourist, I say hire Visit Mongolia. They'll take you around.
Yeah, so the name of your wife's company is Visit Mongolia?
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, she studied in Ukraine for 8 years, got a master's in engineering. Actually,
Really?
she was going to work in the space program, and
Wow.
and radio engineering.
I can see radio engineering, tourism. This is kind of the same thing.
Well, she came back, and it was after the Russian collapse. So there was no
Yeah.
there was no chance. So she got in. She started her tourist company, and it's inbound. And the best move she ever made was at her kitchen table in the first year. She came up with the address, visitmongolia.com, and she got it. She's had it since then.
Nice.
So she gets most of her business, because it's inbound anyway, through internet connections.
Right.
So, and that's why she's very good on the internet, better than even now her English is far better, but I mean, not quite up to her son's level.
Jim, where's your favorite spot in Mongolia, in the countryside? I mean, out of UB, where do you love to go?
Oh, okay. At first I was going to say my favorite spot is in my apartment with my family and friends. But out of the country, I don't know, I've over the years, I kept going to Turelj a lot, and I'm friends with the Oyunchen Lodge people, John Carlson, Amanda, and I mean, and that gets you in the countryside, and there's good food there.
And it's so close. I mean, it's 40-minute drive. It's nice.
Yeah. So I would choose that place because I've been there a lot. I mean, obviously they're more exotic places. I mean, I've been in the Gobi and other places, but that comes to mind. But I think the important thing is good friends, and maybe sharing food and drinks with them and talking. And so it could be in my apartment, but it could be at a Oyunchen Lodge, or it could be somewhere. Could be by the Tool River on a blanket, some good wine and good friends.
Can you share with me perhaps a funny anecdote, a story about a cultural faux pas that you've made? I want to know.
Which one?
I know.
No,
I
I'm
make
kidding.
them all the time, and I like asking these of my foreign guests because it fascinates Mongolians,
Well, actually, one comes to mind, and when it was the first time I was in a ger, and it was in Turelj, somewhere in Turelj. This would have been 12 or 13 years ago, and at night in this ger, it started to. It had a big rainstorm, and it started coming in through the opening in the roof, pouring down onto the stove and stuff, and and didn't know what to do, and wasn't getting wet on the side on the bed, but the next morning went in to have breakfast and told everybody, and they said, "You dummy, all you had to do was pull the strings and you would close, you would close that." I said, "Oh my God, how did I know? It was dark, I didn't know." Anyway, that was not too brilliant.
That's
It
funny.
only happened once.
Yeah. Do you find that, I mean, you've been here so long, but do you find you're always learning new things about Mongolian cultures and traditions? And
Yeah, I have my little snuff bottle, and family outings, and
Nice.
I had to be taught how to
I know
exchange
how
it
to
and
exchange it.
all
I'm
that
not done
stuff, and you don't want to do it wrong. I showed up at one family outing not too long ago, and I forgot to bring a hat because I'm an older person in
Wait a
that
minute, you're
family or
supposed to
something.
bring a hat?
I think so. Yeah,
happens? Oh, really?
Yeah, for I think it was for I don't know, for Sagansar or maybe Nadam. No, no, it was a Sagansar because you go around to everybody and so. You know, I'm in the family, and I'm older than most in that family, so I think I was supposed to have a hat on. Anyway, but they forgave me.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, how old is your snuff bottle?
Oh, geez, I don't have a really good one. I think it's not too old. It's only a few years old. It's not a really classy one.
I've got a thing for snuff bottles. I often go to Ortsagan, that street behind the State Department store. There are many, many snuff bottle shops. And I love looking at them, but it's not really a woman thing. I mean, girls don't have snuff bottles.
Right, but yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I've got one.
Yeah, my brother-in-laws have really good ones.
Yeah.
And in fact, at first they gave me, you know, one of theirs.
Yeah, I've got snuff bottle envy. I don't know. It just, I think there's a market for women's snuff bottles. Jim, tell me, who inspires you?
How so?
Well, I want to know. I mean, perhaps you could tell me a political leader or someone who you look up to.
Well,
an author, an artist, somebody who.
Wow. Well, one author that I read a lot of was Ernest Hemingway, and actually, my family and I are going to take a cruise over the holidays, and the first stop is going to be Key West from Miami, and I'm going to see his home in Key West. It's one of the key stops, Ernest Hemingway's home, because he wrote a lot about the sea.
Of course, I mean, The Old Man in the Sea. I mean,
and the Pearl, and
of course.
I've seen where he died. He died and shot himself in.
I know, such a tortured
Ketchum.
soul.
I visited his tomb, but in Ketchum, Idaho, next to Sun Valley, a great ski resort. So I thought he was a great writer. In business and in investments, my idol has always been Warren Buffett, who actually taught at Columbia Business School. And I met him there, and he was a speaker, and I was a student body president, so I got a chance to introduce him. And then I asked him a question, like, I said, "Where do you get your ideas to invest?" A brilliant question. He said, "I read a lot." That was his answer, which he does. And now one of his two assistants is a cousin of mine, and he loves working for Warren Buffett. He's still very sharp, and he's down to earth. He's lived in the same house for 40 years in Omaha. He drinks Diet Cokes and cheeseburgers, eats
My
cheeseburgers.
kind of guy.
I mean, he was against companies having planes, but finally he had to get around, so he got his own plane. But he didn't.
Interesting, then. Yeah.
His kids, they say, have been grown up and they're not spoiled.
They're grounded.
Grounded. In fact, he wrote an article saying, it doesn't matter how much money I have, I'm giving it all to charity, and my children are only going to get like $100,000 or something, and that's it. Period. Nothing. No stocks. Nothing. Wow. That's it, and they've got to make it on their own. And evidently, I'm told, they're regular people, whereas a lot of sons of rich people are not.
They go off the rails, Jim, tell me, I want to talk about Mongolians now. If you could have dinner with 5 Mongolians, who would they be? Say dinner party, and they could be living or non-living. If we could bring them back, who would they be?
Okay. Well, Sakin Bilig.
Sakin Bilig, yeah.
I mean, he's in a key position, and we really are relying on him.
Yeah, of course.
And I don't really know him, and I'd like to hang out over dinner with him. A woman I put on my list, Aruna, who's run the Arts Council of Mongolia for about 12 years now. Yep. And they do such wonderful stuff. And her husband just got famous by producing a movie, and she actually helped him with it. But Aruna is somebody that I admire a lot, and I'd like to have dinner with her. Another person, Sumati, who is just a genius. He's done political polls for 15 years here with Sant Maral. Yep. But he knows so much about the world. and he was head of Transparency International here. He's an expert on beer.
That's important.
Yeah, things like that. So I would like at least to have beer with Sumati. I'd like to, I admire a fellow by the name of Sarad in Chinorlu. Sarad was vice director of BCM for 6 years, almost from when we started till last summer, and just could not resist setting up his own company. And so entrepreneurs, I think, and he's, he has a couple, he has a young child, but he is going out there with this B2B business, B2B Mongolia, which is a database that we created actually under the BCM umbrella, but that's his now.
Wow.
And he's trying to, he just went live about a month ago. So, I mean, he's working so hard, and I'm really supporting him. I'm really rooting for him, and would obviously like to have dinner with him and stay up to date. One other, and then I have one left, right?
Yes, one left.
A fellow who I've really admired by the name of Gonzorik. Gonzo is involved in a lot of things, but he controls Mondal General Insurance.
Dwyer.
Yeah, and he's been very involved helping the financial regulators get going. He was on the board of the stock exchange when Botbold could bring people onto it. And then that's been disbanded, but maybe they want him to go back on. He helps the financial regulators of insurance and non-banking, the FRC. He's an advisor.
He's a good man.
Yeah, he really looks out for Mongolia. He publishes things like he had Steve Jobs' book translated. He got permission and had it translated into Mongolian.
I didn't know that, so he did that.
Yeah, and he gave it to about 50 of his friends. But I mean, he did that just, not to make money or anything. He did that just because he wanted to share that book in Mongolian.
Interesting.
And that's an example of the kind of things he does.
Yeah, I like that. And the reason I ask you this about 5 people you'd have dinner with is because these are the next 5 guests I'm going to have on the show. I'm actually asking for tips. Oh, Jim Dwyer, there you are.
The Prime Minister might be a little busy, though.
I don't know. Maybe he can.
Go for it.
Me in 10 minutes. 10 minutes with Sack and Bill, it's all I need. I'd love to get him on in 2015.
Yeah.
But Jim, it's been, today having you on the show has been really fun. You are a very interesting man with a big heart and a beautiful family. And I hope I see you in the coming year. I hope you have a wonderful Christmas and New Year. And thank you so much for coming. It's lovely.
Good to be with you.
Yeah, thank you. And that's all for today, viewers. Thank you very much for being on Talk With Me, and we'll see you next time. But for now, Bayer Sten Darotsi.